Ladies and gentlemen, this is Scott Pollock, Chief Editor of the Critical Post Chicago reporting. Welcome to another edition of the Goldwater Report. Thanks again for tuning us in, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, in my last broadcast, I told you that there were going to be subsequent broadcasts in a few days regarding financial moral hazard, the cultural moral hazard, and the latest of the narratives. Ladies and gentlemen, it has always been my intention with the Critical Post to first know what I was talking about and also to know, before anything else, what was our status. That always has been the question foremost in my mind. Again, that question is, what is our status as people living in the United States? Ladies and gentlemen, I have done a number of interviews. I have done a number of reports. I have listened to a lot of people. I monitor a lot of things. I monitor the same news that you monitor and others. I subscribe to certain things because I want to hear what people are saying that might be in a position to influence the general population at large. Because how the general population at large moves is largely how this country will move. The PR platforms that otherwise are called news outlets, and that includes the conservatives and the libertarians and the progressives and the far leftists and the extreme rightists and all of these things, are merely PR platforms, and what it is, as best as I can determine, on all of the things that matter, is we have a bunch of people who are the blind leading the blind. In some cases, we have the partially blind leading the blind. We have big influencers out there on the right, such as Mark Levin and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity. And yet, where is their outrage about the murder of the President of the United States? Now, this country has been careening back and forth like a pinball in a pinball machine ever since that moment in time. The latest thing about immigration. This whole thing was put in place in 1965 with the 1965 Immigration Act under LBJ's so-called Great Society. And since then, approximately 100 million people from the third world have flooded into this country, and most of them have failed to assimilate to what is American life. They don't observe our customs. They want us to observe theirs. There are people that are insisting that this was not a country that was founded, ill-founded in another manner, on Judeo-Christian principles. whether you believe in those religious principles or not, otherwise known as the Decalogue, the Ten Commandments. These people have never assimilated. So this whole Immigration Act now has been flooding the country for the last 55 years, around 55 years, with people from the third world. When you look out into Europe, these are populations that are moving north from the south, either from Africa or the quote-unquote Middle East. We have had a flood of people come in here from Pakistan and India. And now you have a flood of people coming in the Western Hemisphere, of people coming in from South America, Central America, and Mexico, through Mexico. They're flooding the zone and causing a problem here. But do you think that they're going to fix all the loopholes that have been thrown into this 1965 Immigration Act? Do you think they're going to fix that? Do you think this president can fix that? And the answer to that question is no. No. But that's just one example. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I told you this was going to be a broadcast about financial moral hazard. So I want to read to you what the definition is of financial moral hazard or economic moral hazard that are the most appropriate for this explanation so that we can understand part of what our status is. Moral hazard, a situation in which one of the parties to a contract has an incentive after the contract is agreed to act in a manner that brings benefits to themselves at the expense of the other. Another definition that's apt. Moral hazard is a consequence of hidden actions and transactions, that is, actions that parties to a transaction may take after they have agreed to execute a transaction. If these actions are unobservable to the other parties to the transaction, and if they may harm the interests of these other parties, then these hidden actions may prevent the successful completion of the transaction. And I would say at least on the party that has been disadvantaged. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to switch the screen here, and I want you to see that, for the longest time I have been putting this in the beginning of the trailers or the headpieces of the Critical Post Chicago Report and the Goldwater Report, and I've been using this statement to alert people to an account in the Special Federal Reserve Board. Now, this was a document shown to me by Paladin of the White Hats Report when I was doing the Keenan investigation. And what he showed me everything that is necessary, and I trust Paladin. I trust him a great deal. I know that this document was real. But since that point in time, I would assume, and this is as of December 1st, 2008, that since this point in time, this trust has changed its name, the trustees have been shifted, whatever the case may be, dozens of times at this point, because that's how they move it around. But the very number that you're looking at on the screen is economic moral hazard. And that is the size of the moral hazard as of 2008. Now, this was in October of 2008, or December, excuse me, as I see on the screen, December of 2008. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to say that it's worse than that, than what you see. 17 sets of 3 zeros each. Now, we live in a system of selective prosecution. That's our status in one area, the justice system. Perfect example of that is how come all of these people aren't being prosecuted that were under the Obama administration? How can that be? How can, for 55 years or 56 years, can there be nobody prosecuted for the assassination in public view of the President of the United States? How come Mrs. Clinton hasn't been prosecuted? How come the Clinton Foundation hasn't been prosecuted? Now I hear in the grapevines that there's going to be all kinds of stuff and there's going to be military tribunals and this and that and the other thing. I got news for anybody who says that to me in the future. In your wildest dreams. Nothing of the like is going to take place. This president, along with every president since President Kennedy, is told what to do. He is told he can't go to certain places. That if he does, him and his family will be dead. I'm positive that that meeting takes place. And I'm positive that this president, along with all the previous presidents, is waiting for his payoff after he leaves office. Obama's got his payoff. That man's living high on the hog. He's going to become one of the richest black men in the world. Now, the reason that this moral hazard that you see on the screen is not being reported, even if it was sent to the major news PR outlets, because these are nothing but PR outlets, the New York Times, the Washington Post, it's PR, public relations. The reason that they won't publish something like that is this is dangerous for the world order. If the financial markets took what the heck is going on in the so-called black screen accounts seriously, the entire liquidity of business and the business systems and the financial systems, which all of your 401ks are tied to, possibly areas of the Social Security Fund, would tank. Now I'm being told there's going to be a reset. I'm being told that this man by the name of Mike Cottrell is the trustee that is going to handle the reset because he wrote the paper on it, and I was alerted to something by somebody about this man doing an interview on somebody's YouTube channel in a broadcast, and how this is all supposed to take place, and I was told he's one of ours. I don't believe it for a second. I want to alert you to, and I want you to remember that I did an interview with Bill Still. I also want you to remember that I did an interview with Harmon Taylor. And between the understanding of the facts that I received from both of those gentlemen makes me refute all the rest, makes me condescend and refute all the rest of what I'm hearing on the backwires. Selective justice, selective prosecution. In other words, there's law for you, and then there's law for those that have money. And the justice system is all about whether or not you have enough money to make it operate for you, because you're not going to be able to do that through a public defender's office unless you're very clever. If you happen to be accused of a crime. Title 18 of the United States Code. In a little while, I'm going to publish parts of a conversation that I had with Harmon Taylor, describing to you why silence is consent and how that all occurs. So stay tuned for that. The garbage that we're seeing is a result of the public's lack of knowledge. This is all about the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee making money. Your politics is about them making money, and all they're doing is making a living. It is insincere. It is not serious. There's nothing that's going to be fixed. Now, according to this particular president, according to John Williams' shadow stats, has bent down the curve of overall unemployment a little bit, a couple of points. Now there's maybe only 22% of the country that is unemployed or will never be employed again. But that's 60, 70 million people. And the people from the early part of my generation are retiring now and taking and calling their markers with the Social Security Administration. I don't believe that this president's going to do anything momentous. And this thing with Jeffrey Epstein now being the latest thing, I don't think anything really is going to come about as a result of that. I don't think that Hollywood is going to be taken down, nor the entertainment community that's part of that complex in New York City. None of this is going to occur. It's selective justice. It's Jeffrey Epstein's easy pickings. He's low fruit. Bill Clinton is not going to go down. It's just red meat. Red meat for the uninitiated. It's garbage. It doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't mean that anything regarding law and order in this country is going to take place. So I'm not going to use this thing that I showed you anymore, because it doesn't matter. They're not going to stop this system. The financial markets are going to continue to operate exactly as the way they operate, because the vested interests are too powerful to cause anything else to happen. Now there's in a couple of months there's going to be a budget battle again, and they're going to raise the debt ceiling again. They're never going to stop raising the debt ceiling. Stay tuned for my next report. If you can want to see the bulk of what that report's going to be about, I made a broadcast a couple of years ago about the demoralization of America, the kind of financial hazard that you see here, the kind of moral financial hazard that you see here. Can only occur with a population that's as addled as it is. It can only occur with a population that's not paying attention. And there are other reasons. So take a look in that video in the videos list over at the Critical Post Chicago YouTube broadcast channel. Again, this is Scott Pollock, Chief Editor of the Critical Post Chicago, reporting. Thanks again for watching another Goldwater Report. That is all.